Welcome back to Story Deep Dive with Rachel and Dana. This is a podcast where two book coaches, editors, and besties discuss books not as readers but as writers to take inspiration from great books and have plenty of laughs along the way. And today we are going to be talking about the characters in Tempt Me at Twilight by Lisa Kleypas. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty of characters, don't look so surprised, Dana. I'm going to check in with Dana and find out what's going on over at Danger Tales. So, Dana, what you got going on over there? The look on your face, I was like ramping up, and you were like, "Oh no!" Like it's like,
okay, y'all. I promise y'all, it's not an act. It's almost like as soon as I know, it's like it goes out of my ears. Okay, so everything and nothing. Last week I was telling you guys about the fact that we are going to be having a summer movie series instead of our normal book club book, and I'm really excited about it. So the other part that I sort of hinted at that I think would be pretty dope to share this week that's going on in DTW is, well, actually, our retreats, we make it open to all of our clients at Danger Tales that are active. But it's the fact that I'm doing our first summer retreat. And originally, this came about, and it's a virtual retreat, even though y'all are so bad. I really want us to come back in person.
Yeah.
I just need to get back to my event location. But anyways, so we always do an annual retreat in December. That's right before we go into our winter break. Mm-hmm. This is something that we've done for the past, I think this coming year will be our 4th year doing it. And it's a 3-day virtual retreat. The winter one is focused on planning, like looking back and then looking forward. So we look at what you've done over the year. What are some things you need to change? How do you want to plan to go forward? How do you want to implement the ahas that you have come away with during this retreat? One of the things that when I first started playing with the idea of having a summer break was like, oh, well, we should check in. How is it going? Did you do it?
Yeah.
Did it work? Right? Because you've had 2 quarters to be able to implement what you've done. So that was the first sort of like play at, that I could do that. And I was like, yeah, but is that enough for like a whole weekend? Because we do like 3 days, and I do usually 4 sessions across 3 days is what the norm is of what we do. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. So I just sort of like made space for it.
Yeah.
And then the other day, like a couple weeks ago, we have our sprint. We sprint Monday through Thursday, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. And at the end, the last 15 minutes, they can ask questions. I think people really like it because it's not on a recorded line. It's usually right after you finish writing. So something could come up, etc. Okay. So then I said something. I was like, well, we've been codifying our process in a sense of what are the actual steps? Like, yes, we know like plot, write, edit, like we know that. But like the Danger Tales things of like, okay, what do we do? Like, so one of the things that we do is we always do a test novella and explaining why I do a test novella, and then a test series, why and what's a part of it and what makes it different, etc. And so once we started talking about that, my thought was, have you written a book that shows your ass?
Please tell me more about this, because this is the first I'm hearing of it, and I desperately want details. Tell me more.
Listen, this is what happens to a person that I now realize that I am an auditory processor for my teaching. I kind of knew this, but now I really know it. And when I'm like, the mic is hot, like I'm reaching for really great examples. That's just going to be a mic drop in a moment. And girl, that was a mic drop. Okay. But here's what I mean by that. is a lot of times people always like holding on to their good stuff for another time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, have you written a book where you everything you have,
All
you
your
put into
best
it?
ideas went in there. We're not
In
saving
it.
anything. And because can I
Come on.
I just want to say that so much of that that impulse comes from like a scarcity mindset,
It is.
right? It's you believe that you aren't going to have that those are your best ideas and you're not going to have another one, so you got to save the really good stuff for another time because you can't sort of spend it on this book. But the thing is when you use your best ideas, you get new ideas. And but it's there's this belief that those are the best ideas that we have and we have to sort of ration them. So yeah, I love it. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. This is great.
What you're saying, so my thing is that in that scarcity, what happens is you don't realize that you create a new foundation. So you have the opportunity to build a new ceiling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so listen, if you got babies around, I apologize. I'm gonna say it one more time. When you showing your ass, you doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
You doing all the things.
Yeah.
So they really know who you are. And here's the catch. You know who you are.
Yeah.
That the process of these earlier drafts, books, moments are about learning and knowing who you are on the page. So I go to my brainstorming partner. I go to Coco and I'm like, I think I want the topic to be showing up. I'm explaining. And it's like, this is a great idea, but can we call it something else?
Wait, okay. But okay, so Coco asks you, can we call it something else? What was your answer where you're like, no, this is the branded title, or are we giving it another title?
I said, give me some options. I'm going to be open, but I want that energy.
Yeah.
I want that energy. And I also know that as we're talking about it and we are engaging with it, I don't want it to be like, pearl clutch, and you missed the point, right?
Yeah.
So we came up with something that was great. I loved it. So I came up with something great. But in my mind, it's going to always be that, because I really want it to feel like, where are you? How clear are you about the direction that you want to go into your stories? Are you holding back? Is there a reason why? Have you created the idea that becomes the perfect concept and container to express yourself? Because here's the other catch of all of this. Your test project will never really do what you want it to do unless you're operating in that energy.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Because if you're not testing out the whole shebang, then you don't know if the whole shebang is doing what it's supposed to do.
And so this is what, so this is the energy and what we're dancing around and circling around for our retreat in June. And I'm really excited. I was so excited. Like, I've pretty much have almost all the content drafted, my notes. I have everything. I don't have the the presentations, but I feel like it's going to be one of those where we have a lot more hands-on time, because I think there's going to be a lot of ahas of where am I playing is safe?
Yeah.
Where is it that I need to push myself? Is there a reason why I'm holding myself back? What limiting beliefs am I letting drive this whole situation that I need to, to get rid of or to reframe so that I can have the fullest level of expression and also creativity, and opening up the opportunities for profitability, right? It's not, I think sometimes we think about it as in, well, don't play it safe and all that. But I think it's about, scripture says the power of life and death's in this tongue, right? And I think that's the same thing that can happen with our thoughts. We are already putting a ceiling on it, and you haven't even wrote the thing. So let's remove the ceiling. Let's show our whole entire ass. and then see, like, what do we have? What do we love about it? Where can we grow? Where we're like, okay, girl, you doing too much.
Yeah.
Because we have those too. We need to pull back, right? And then be able to have this full because the thing that I really came away with the last bit of this is that it could be that you're making it so that the conversation is all about, yeah, you should do a test and why you do a test. And this is what we see your test project being at Danger Tales. But what I really want it to be about is like, who are you becoming?
Yeah. Let it be like a self-discovery.
Who are you as a writer?
Yeah.
When you read, they be like, wait a minute, that's me. Yeah. It's like when you walk past a mirror and you go back, you're like, behave you. That's the way I want you to feel about your writing. And here's ultimately why. This is what's been so great about here lately, like writing these articles, these essays, even the ones that I haven't put up yet for Substack, because I'm like really letting myself go there. I feel like here's why. It's the fact that the version of you that's needed to write your dream project resides somewhere in there.
Yeah. So
if you try to write your dream project as the version of you that you are right now, the writer that you are right now, you'll blow it. That's what I'm writing right now. You'll blow it. And the reason why you'll blow it is because you just don't have the tools yet.
Yeah, you don't have any experience, right? Like you think about, Brandon Sanderson just starting with The Way of Kings, his longest, most sort of like his biggest, most in-depth, most world-buildy, magic system-y project, right? But like he knew that like he had written sort of like proto versions because he was like running the idea and just sort of like playing with it. But like he knew that was like, but this is like, this comes later, right? And you get your chops and you get your structural belt on and you get all of that stuff so that you have the tools to tackle that big dream project, that ambitious project. And you're not just going in blind, like, here's hoping this works, woo, but really giving yourself the opportunity to learn the skills so that you have the skills to do the thing that you want to do.
And a lot of times, and I would say many people, you do have practice. You just don't have it in that arena. Yeah. And what you're doing is the more that you are writing and pushing complete and getting to the end, writing and getting to the end and writing and getting to the end, what you are doing is you're accumulating those skills and you're building and you are assessing and you're growing so that when you are ready to tackle it, you still don't have what you need because you don't know what you need until you're in there, but you will have confidence because you have those things underneath your belt. Right. Yeah. And you have a better sort of dexterity because you have had those other projects and now you're coming in and you are applying it versus it being, I'm knocking knees, I'm scared about everything, I don't know nothing about nothing. And so, so my thing is that instead of waiting to put all of that into this one big thing, put all of it into everything. Yeah. Trusting that when you get to that next thing, it's going to be a new version of all of you going into that. Yeah. And so, that's where
so I love that.
That y'all, for the record, that's probably as much cursing as I've done all year. So it's not.
It's because I do enough for the both of us. Dana doesn't have to because I do all of it. I try not to do it on the podcast, but Rachel is usually the one with
body mouth. But to me, it's like you had to, like, it just feels like, oh, okay, no, I haven't done that. All right, why not? And then like have the real conversation. Have the real conversation so that we can get to the real work. And so that's what's going on over here at Danger Tales. Yeah.
I kind of like giving it like, right, it has like sort of the public facing like title, but then when people get into the community and they kind of come inside, you're like, okay,
Okay.
This is how we say it out here, but here's what we really mean in here. And it's right, it becomes a part of the vernacular, and people sort of get the experience of being initiated into this is how we see things here. And like, this is the perspective that we bring to writing and projects. And like, and it gives them just that taste of like, okay, this is how we do things here. Right. And it's like that little layer.
And you hear it in certain students' voice, because it's not going to sound like the way I say it. It's going to be like the way they said it. We're all hitting the floor laughing. And it is, because everybody like takes a sense of ownership, you know, in the way that's necessary for their books to come to life and to birth, you know, their careers. And it's sort of like, you know, the very real state of planting a seed and then nurturing the ground and watering and letting it have sun and, you know, and tending to the ground some more as it's growing. And you're doing that from a seed, and the seed is just an idea, right? And that's what we're doing over the course of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I think that's like the cool part about working with, like, this is why I like, you know, our sort of individual like niches where we work are like, that's the joy of working with like writers who are like, this is what I'm doing. Like for the foreseeable future, like I'm not just trying to complete my singular magnum opus. I've got lots of stories to tell, and I want to keep telling stories, because then, right, like you get the, like, that's the joy of like, then like in community or with your individual clients, like you get to watch them grow, and you get to be like, see them on that journey and watch those skills improve and walk with them over this period of time of like multiple books and new ideas and new, you know, little pivots and that kind of thing. And that's the joy of like writing like lots of books, writing as like, this is a thing that I'm doing as a part of my life as a whole. I'm not just writing one, but I want to write many. And that's like, it's actually like your first book is a huge accomplishment, right? That's like your first milestone, like big, like macro milestone. But it's like, you get into like the later books, like that's where it really gets good, right? Like that's really where the fun really, really starts. That first book, you're still getting a feel for your process, kind of trying to get your feet under you, learning the basics, and just kind of trying to get that, like, get everything together and like put it all out there and like, okay, who am I? And then as you get clear on that, then you get to bring that to the next book. And then like those are like, I feel like that's like, if you can get through your first book, and then you really like, then we really start having fun. Your first book is fun, but it gets way better, even better on the other side of that first book. And that's the real, like, that's kind of the pleasure of what we do, working with people who, you know, want to write lots of books.
Yeah, and then it's like, because you just have to get the wiggles off. I always call it the wiggles, and it sounds weird, but you just kind of get the wiggles off. You got to get the wiggles off, and you have to just go through the process, and then you will start realizing like what you're made of, and the more you're clear about that, the more I can press that.
Yeah,
as your coach.
Yeah,
right. Absolutely. Like we begin to see like what they're capable of, and the things that they are doing really well that they don't see. And we can push that and encourage that. And that's when it gets real fun.
Yeah. Oh, it's so
like
true.
The good stuff starts happening. So yes. So with that said, that's what we're over here doing. We're over here cursing and writing wonderful books.
Big day, big day.
And getting on my hand like this from a Coco, but it's all good. So let us know, what do you have going on over there at Story Cipher?
Yes, ma'am. So I hinted at this last week, but we are preparing to open up registration for our next cohort, which I'm super excited about, because again, you know, we did this a second time around. So we had, you know, our beta run last year, and then the first half of this year, we did our next run of the cohort. And it's like every time, right, like I'm adding new resources, and you know, get the presentations are getting better, and I'm watching the ideas get sharper and more developed, and I have more sort of like resources, because we also have the student experiences to pull from, right, to say, okay, like I can see these 3 different paths that a writer might take, and now that I know that, like I kind of have these, like, if you're going this direction, here's this resource, if you're going this direction, right, and to be able to like just build that out and keep making it better and keep, you know, taking writers through that process, because really the academy is for exactly that thing, right? Your test book. I have several writers who have brought their, like, you know, the project that's been living with them for a long time. And they're seeing, again, I mean, I've got students who have been trying to write this book that they're excited about, and this idea that they have for 10 years, and not been able to figure out, how do I actually put the dang thing together? And like going through the, like, this is how you separate out writer and editor brain, and how you organize it, and how you approach each stage of the process, right? And being able to actually bring that thing to life, and like, oh my gosh, this thing that I've been trying to create for all this time, 10 years for one, 5 years for another, like actually then manifesting into something physical. And that's really like what the academy is for, right? It's like getting that first book and understanding how the process works, so that you can do it again and again and again and again. And then, you know, we have the fellows program on the other side, so that it's not like you go through the cohort and then it's like, okay, good luck, bye, you did your book, see ya, right? But it's like you've built this community over time as you're going through this process together, and then you get to if you want to anyway, you get to stay with that community and keep growing. And then, right, because it's like, okay, now we know how the process works, then we can, because my community, what they love is like the nitty gritty, right? Of like, ooh, like how do we do this very specific thing? Or like, I want to dig deep into this particular skill. And like, that's when you can really start to do that, right? Because it's like, once you have the baseline understanding of how to approach the process, so that, because a lot of times what happens is writers pick up all these tools, and then they have like a pile of tools, and they have no idea when they're supposed to use which tool, right? Where it's like you bought like this fully stocked, decked out like workshop, and it's got all the tools, except you've never woodworked before. And so you're like, when do I use this thing? Like, when do I pull out this thing versus this thing? And like, when does this come into play? And that's one of the things that I see, like, will hang writers up in the process, is like, I have all these tools and I keep trying to use them all at once. And it's like, oh, hang on. Like, you're in your first draft. Now is not the time to be pulling out that. I need you to put that away. Let's see if we can get some stuff on the page first, and then we'll go in. And so then, like, you know, on the other side, you get to develop more of those skills and dig into more of those tools, because now you know when you should actually be using them, and they're not confusing you, they're actually serving what you're trying to do. And that's really the exciting part about both having a graduating cohort and bringing in a new cohort as well, of like, all right, let's go through the process and like show you how this actually works, so that you could do it again and again and again and again. And we get to go through that and do it again and again and again together on the other side of that cohort. So so we're going to be opening up for registration in June. So that's coming up real soon. And I'm excited. I'm excited to bring more people in and go through the process again, because it's dang fun. And I'm watching students have win after win after win. And sharing that is like so awesome. And again, building writing community is so special. So yeah, that's what we got going on here. And I'm real excited.
Okay, I have one question. At least I think one question for now. So is there going to be any major changes or shifts that are to be expected with the new cohort, or you're like locked in because you've had almost like 2 full cohorts to sort of work out all the details?
Yeah, so really it's we're pretty much locked in. The shifts that occur are like improvements to, like, I have a new, you know, an extra resource for like, oh, when we get to first draft time, right? Like I can send them to like the podcast, right, that we did about first drafts. Not that, I mean, I have basically now a whole first draft support kit, because we've done this now 2 times. And so I've like collected all of these different things of like, okay, when you're like feeling the pressure, look to this thing, right? And these kind of resources that can kind of help keep getting you through. But there's no major shifts. We're really just locking in and then just kind of building on what we already have, to make that little bit better every single time. So yeah.
I'm excited for you. It just feels like so much. It feels like time is moving super fast.
Oh my gosh. Feels like I was just talking about like, we just brought in our new cohort and now we're in the brainstorming phase. And I'm like, they're almost done with their second drafts and learning the revision process. Like that is like hurtling toward us. And we've got like the next launch coming up, which just makes my brain spin of like, it feels like it came flying at me really fast. And I'm like, oh, it's a good thing I prepared for this in advance. I had it all marked out on my calendar because holy moly, it just feels like it sneaks up on you.
Listen, I'm over here counting on my fingers. I'm like, listen, maybe I done missed some time, but I mean, I think it's great. And I think it's going to be so interesting to see students that are like from your first cohort, sort of what it looks like for them, because then this means that will be a year for them.
Yeah. Yep.
And that'll be where they are, where I guess with the original project, or whether they're moving on to a new one, or whether they are in a new pass stage, like,
yeah,
and what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been really cool this time. We got to really sort of see how that feels this time around, because we brought in a new cohort and most of my writers were still revising. So they're still like working through their, iterating on their draft and fine tuning and getting those final tweaks. We did hot seats. And so they were making revisions based on the feedback that we did in the hot seats. And so like what's fun is that because we lead a new cohort through everything, is like when they're ready to take on a new project, right, they dip right in with the new cohort, and it's like they're working on their second project alongside people who are working on their first project, but following the same process. And it gives them it's nice because like even though they've already been through it, it kind of helps them to like keep moving, because it's like, oh, this is brainstorming, so I'm going to focus on brainstorming, and then this is outlining, and it still kind of gives that feeling of almost like hard deadlines to just kind of keep that pace, if you don't have any other kind of external deadlines that are keeping you moving, and then they can kind of be in a flow with other students. And again, the new students then can get the benefit of the wisdom of students who've already been through it, which is that's been one of my favorite parts of like having a new cohort along with the our like graduates, is seeing them like give advice to the new students and have perspective that they can share of like, listen, when I did this, I made this mistake, like, but if I could do it again, this is what I would tell myself to do, right? And them being able to share that with the new students, so that they get to talk to someone who's been through it before, and who's been through this very specific version and iteration and this way of doing things. So I always look forward to that aspect, is like you grow a little community of like alums who can help the new students and who are there as like support as well. It's so good.
Oh, I'm excited for you. As always, keep us posted because this is exciting.
Yeah. I love the Academy. It's one of my favorite. It's one of the things I'm most passionate to do. And I love showing up like for our events and sharing it. And so, I'm super excited. So can't wait to welcome in our new cohort of students in June. So it's going to be good. I'll let you guys know how it's going and what we got going on in June. But let's go ahead and dive into our conversation about Tempt Me at Twilight. We're going to talk characters. But before we dive into our discussion of characters, can you give us a summary, if you would?
Yes, and I want to just say as a small caveat, anytime we're talking about this, especially because a lot of our offers are time sensitive, you want to just go to storydeepdive.com and then click on Rachel's name, and that'll take you to a story cipher, and you can find the information there. We don't say that a lot in that way, but it's the same way anytime we're talking about anything, because you don't want to miss that window, because it closes and doesn't open up again until next year. So
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. You can also go to storycipher.me/academy. And that'll link you there, but you can also get through the Story Deep Dive website. So I appreciate that call out, Dana. Thank you.
Okay. The summary. Tempt Me at Twilight follows a Poppy Hathaway, a young woman who longs for a quiet, respectable life and believes she's found it with the perfect, well-mannered suitor. But everything changes when Harry Rutledge, I keep messing up his name, a powerful and unconventional hotel owner, becomes determined to have her for himself. After a scandal forces Poppy into an unexpected marriage, she finds her carefully planned future turned upside down. As she adjusts to life with a man who is as captivating as he is dangerous, Poppy must decide whether to hold on to the life she thought she wanted or risk everything for the love she never saw coming.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay. So there's lots of stuff to talk about when it comes to characters. What are the sort of like high level points that you want to make sure we discuss about characters today?
Well, I feel like it's a lots of stuff, but I don't know if it's a lot of stuff, you know. So I think in general we should just sort of have the it's almost like the element of this entire discussion that sort of accounts for the fact that this book is older. And so one of the things here in the area of the characters is that we have talking about point of view. This story is done in third person, and I think it would have technically been considered head hopping, but it kind of moves around. So we want to make sure we just account for that. Also, I want to talk about the family as a character. We have them as characters, but the family, the Hathaway family as a unit, as a character. And then also I want to talk about our protagonists a little bit, both Harry, as far as his transformation, not being like it wasn't a full transformation. I just put in my notes that he transformed, but it wasn't a hard change. Harry is still Harry, but he's gonna do what he have to do to keep Poppy. Okay. And then also Poppy. And I feel like one of the things that I want to talk about for her is this is one of those sort of character types that it could be easy to make them feel either scattery, airhead, or like not as relatable. But what we really do is we see Poppy mature, and we see a type of character that gives you innocence without being naive, right? The fact that in some areas she's ignorant just because she's just not learned, but at the same time she takes the information and the way she sort of applies it and shows up in these situations, it makes her a very well-rounded character, which is a very interesting play on her dynamic in her relationship with Harry and also the dynamic in her relationship with her family. So those are some of the things that I have that I want to talk about concerning characters in this story. What about you?
Yeah, so actually, same as last week. I think the things that rose to the surface for both of us were very similar because they're just they're. I think that this story showcases some very specific things, right? And so I do have want to talk about sort of the family, and for me, I want to talk about the family as sort of like a family of outsiders and the way that it sort of plays into this found family trope, right? Because they like everybody in the family, and then everybody that the family attracts is like an outsider in some way, and the way that that kind of informs the family dynamic. But also, and this kind of connects to Poppy and her character. But one of the things that this sort of connects in with plot is I thought she did such a great job of using the plot or the tropes that we had sort of driving the story to invite Poppy into that maturity, to like give her the opportunity to rise to the occasion so that we really saw her, like we saw that growth in a really pronounced way where we really see her kind of like own her agency and her sort of role in the marriage and her role just like her sort of herself as a woman in the environment that she's in. So really looking forward to talking about Poppy's character because I think you made some really great points about, you know, she's a character that could come across wrong or poorly, but she didn't here, right? She was endearing instead. So do you want to just give us a quick caveat about the POV and just what you should know if you're reading this book about this particular use of POV?
Mm-hmm. I would say in general that it's a reminder that this book was released in 2009, and it's not like super old, but I mean, it is 15 years old. And I don't believe that a story written in this manner would fly today. Like, I think people would have some issues with it. And so that aspect of it isn't one of the things that we're like, oh, this is a great aspect of it to model. But I think going back to some of our previous episodes, some of the things that we talked about in like Spinning Silver, some of the aspects that we talked about in Before I Let Go, and a few other stories where we are looking for ways to really be able to showcase the characters, increase the stakes using the point of view characters that you have without bringing in additional, because we was a little bit all over the place, right? So it was like, it was poppy and it was in third person. And I think third person gives you some wiggle room, but I don't know if it's that much. So
yeah, you still have like those same considerations, right, that we talked about last month, where it's like every time we get into a new POV, we're like, oh, hello? Where am I? Okay, all right. Right. And so you just again, always something to know when you're shifting POV.
Yeah, and we have what? Our protagonist, of course, we had the staff at one point. We had Jake. We
Leo.
had some of the Hathaway family, including extension like Leo. And so it's just, without going into a number, because it wasn't a set consistent thing. That's another thing that would kind of make it like more of a hit or a miss than a hit. And so I would just say, whenever you're thinking about point of view, understand that point of view is a choice. And I will be very intentional about making that choice, paying attention to your niche and the audience that you are wanting to write to, and making sure that every single point of view earns its place on the page. And so I think in the end, the story works. But if you would have been able to do some of those moments from the main point of view character, I mean, it would have made it even better, because we would have had more opportunity to stay in the sort of pressure cooker that you're creating and not relieve some of that tension for the sake of switching a point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And that's helpful, right? Again, it's just like every time we're looking at something, especially when we get to like older books that are older in the genre. And I have this with my crime clients all the time, crime and thriller, because if you go back to the 90s and the early 2000s, like head hopping and sort of this sort of semi-omniscient point of view where, we just move and shift around and we can kind of like dip into this person's head and then this person's head all in the same scene. That was super standard, like normal. It was in like all like John Grisham books did it. You see it in some of your David Baldacci's. Like it's very, very common. But now it is, readers are less kind of tolerant of it, and they don't tend to prefer it. And so if you're David Baldacci and you're still doing it, you can do it because you're David Baldacci and they know you and you been doing it since the 90s or whatever. But especially if you're newly sort of building an audience, you want to be aware that some of these classics that we look to for other things, this is one of those things that has kind of shifted in time. That is, again, it's just readers don't tend to prefer it as much. And then if you're submitting traditional, agents also tend to sort of feel askance about that particular choice. And so that's something to know about, just the way genres change over time, and taste change, or like reading sort of habits or patterns change over time. So is there any last comments you want to make on that before we...
No, I would say, other than the same thing of like we said last week, of just knowing your niche, reading in your niche. This is where it will help you to see, like, understanding what the norms are and what's happening now. I mean, for a long time, like, most books were written in third person, and now it's very rare, except for some select niches. So just things like that you would normally pay attention to, you need to do that here as well.
Yeah, great. So why don't we go ahead and where do you want to start with our list of topics here?
I think I kind of do want to start with the thing of like family as character and not as individual characters, because of the point of view thing, we do see them individually, and she does a great job of bringing in characters that were in the previous books in the series, and also starting to seed characters in the future books in the series. But I love the whole sort of story and understanding of the Hathaways as a unit, right? The fact that they had Cam and Maripin and I keep saying Leo, even though he's their brother, but it's sort of centered on the sisters
Mm-hmm.
and having all of them as a unit and what it means to be a Hathaway and how
Yeah.
they behave and how they handle conflict and how they handle um, um, family choices and how they handle money and
Yeah.
how they handle now being a family with a with Leo having a title, like an official
Yeah.
title. And so it does something really nice to the tropes that she's chosen and how the protagonists handle conflict.
Yeah.
And I think that's the even better part, because things that would have been limiting if she had been in any other situation is not a
Yeah.
limit in this situation.
Yeah.
Things that would have caused for pause, you know, her brothers, through extension of being married to her sisters, are not pausing on anything. You
Yeah.
either, you know, stand up and rise up to the occasion, or you about to get it. Like, and you gonna get all
Yeah.
of us when you get hurt. And I just love it. And because I am, one of my favorite tropes is found family. I love
Mm-hmm.
found family.
Oof. I never get
It
tired
just
of it.
so I think what this does too, in closing for me with this particular thing, is it allows you to sort of take a step back and look at your series and feel like, what are you aiming to say with this series? When
Yeah.
you have a series where the connection is family, you're aiming to say something about the state of not just this family, but a lot of times what you believe family is as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
and the themes and how it shows up and how they love and how they represent love and how that could affect the relationship that they desire
Yeah.
in the future. And so knowing what that is helps you to be able to take advantage. The final thing here too is because the family in this state and time, because this is a historical romance, a Victorian romance, it affects the dating. And we're
Yeah.
talking about marriage,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's not just out here going on dates. She has to
Yeah.
have a chaperone,
Yeah.
right? And it just, so it does fold into it, but using it as much more than that, than just being, oh, I have to have a chaperone, but their say in her union and how
Yeah.
it shows up and how she feels protected, and or how she already feels as though she has strong men in her life.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge, huge difference. And so I think all of that makes it super yummy.
Yeah, well, and I think something that's I think important there too that you're kind of like pulling on here is that when you make a story choice, like actually following through the like cause and effect of that, right? So like it's not just like, oh, she has a fun family and that's nice and isn't it fun when they're on stage?
Mm-hmm.
She takes it one step further, right? And says, okay, if this is what the family is like, what does that mean for how the story plays out? And really utilizing what she has, right? Like working with what she already has. And so it's like so she's made this choice about this family and what kind of family they're going to be and the kinds of men, right, that are going to be in Poppy's life in this case. So when you have a near scoundrel like Harry make a ploy and be like, nah, now she has to marry me, like, mustache curling villain here. Like, what does that actually mean for how her family is going to respond? So rather than so that actually brings to bear something on the plot itself, right? So we talked about last week the way that this unfolds is like he thinks he's getting one over on the Hathaways because he's like, hey, this works every time, right? Like because this is normally how it does work in this world. But her family is unusual, and the way that they do things means that they're like, that's not how this is going to work. And like, we'll take Poppy home and we have no problems with this. Like you are not her only option. Boy, bye. Right. Like, right. And they step in, and that affects the way that the plot actually unfolds. Right. And again, like we talked about last week, affects then the way that Poppy makes her own, like comes in and is the one who makes the decision for herself. And so not letting those choices be arbitrary or like set dressing, but really letting them, like, once you've made a choice, like pulling on that thread and saying, okay, I've made this choice. What does that mean? What does that mean for the story? How does that change the way that the events play out? And we really, really see that here. And it made, like, the story was better for it. And so I think that the family became a really powerful driver within the story as well, to shape the way that it actually unfolds.
Yeah, I agree. And I love it. And it kind of makes me go into the other when I think about the main characters, because as you are talking about that, it actually I want to talk about Poppy first because we're talking about the Hathaway family. Listen, Poppy told us from the jump something always going on with the Hathaways, and she wants no parts.
Yes.
She wants to be
Poor
normal.
girl.
She wants to be ordinary. She wants to be boring. She just wants to be a farm wife. She don't want to be in the city. Like, listen, we got all the things. And the more she said what she didn't want, as you chase behind a ferret, we like, oh, this is going to be some shenanigans. Sign me up 2 times.
Yeah.
Right? That is what we're saying. And part of this also becomes this understanding of, especially in romance, what does love mean?
Mm-hmm.
An embodiment.
Yeah.
Right? What does it mean? So all the while she's saying that, every time something's going on and it's her sister's, Poppy is there. When Poppy gets ready to figure out what she's going to do about Harry, she's thinking about her sisters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when she's going and doing, you know, different things, even to the point when, you know, Harry wants to know, I know you're going to tell me what your family thinks. What do you think?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it helps to have that lens. And I think that was one of the things that we talked about from last week when you talk about the fact that there's not like a super strong external plot. That was something that's there. Having that other element, it's almost like this foregone decision. And her like, well, but, you know, I get why this, but there's something drawing me to him. Do I do this? Do I not? And we see her sort of wrestling with that. So with that said, because of having a large family, a very expressive family, and the fact that the family, the entire family is operating at some capacity throughout this story, they had to be distinct.
Yeah.
They had to be recognizable. And so you have Poppy, who this book, I believe it's a 5-book series, don't quote me. And I believe Poppy is book 3. We're halfway there.
Yeah.
So you also need to be able to get us over this hump in the series. And technically, Poppy just wants ordinary, normal, boring. And you still have to bring it to keep our attention.
Yeah.
And she sort of has one of those characters that could be like, you may feel like she's youthful. She's young. I think she's like 23 years old. She can feel as if it could be that she's naive.
Yeah.
But she doesn't feel boring, and she doesn't feel like overly done, right? You feel like, you know, Poppy. You feel like you know her and you get her and you want the best for her, and you're on this journey to figure out like what's about to happen. And so over the course of this story, her part of her growing and transforming is her maturing. I think, I mean, of course, the marriage and everything, but I think her main thing was like, taking these circumstances and figuring out, what am I going to do about this? How am I going to show up? What do I want? What does love look like? And also figuring out, what does that mean through the lens of how she sees Harry against what she wanted and what she knows.
Yeah.
And that's what we are seeing from her. And I think it's funny, and it's light, and it's refreshing. And she just seems like, I don't know, like giggles and laughter and smiling. So when she's having to put her foot down, or where she's boring, Harry, to the point he goes to sleep on purpose, and when she's standing up for him, or she's interacting and engaging with the people that are around them, you are seeing her become a woman and not just Poppy Hathaway. You are
Yeah.
seeing her becoming Poppy Rutledge. And that is like, it's just really good. It's really good.
Yeah, well, and I think I just want to like, make mention of something because we literally talked about this last month with Spinning Silver that I think that Lisa Kleypas did really well here. And again, it's taking advantage of the fact that you can be in her head, right? And that is like such an important opportunity to utilize. Like if like your female main character, like you are in her head, and of course the same is true for your main male character. But I find that it can be when it comes to accidentally making a character annoying, usually the female main character is the one that becomes the problem for. You are in this character's head, so taking advantage of that opportunity so we can see how they think. And that is one of the ways I think that she keeps Poppy from feeling like I'm awkward, that's my thing, or like is feeling, again, airheaded or any of these things, because we watch her and she thinks very rationally about the situations she's in, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that she doesn't know from lack of exposure. But like when she and I see this happen, there's sort of two main places where I see this happen. This is if you have a like a female main character who's supposed to be sort of like abrasive or like tough, right? Where she sort of winds up like tough girl, but she makes sort of these decisions that feel like they're the problem that happens is like decisions that feel like they're made because the plot requires it, not because this character has any rational reason to make this choice. And that's sort of what happens there. And a similar thing can happen as well with like a naive character, or where they come across as feeling like, do you have anything going on in your head, or are you just like and you're just sort of like wandering around life? What is happening? But taking advantage of the fact that you're in her head, and so you can help us understand why she does what she does and what drives her to make the decisions she's making. So when she opts into our, again, quote unquote, forced marriage, right? Like we watch her make a very rational weight of what's going on and being like, okay, I see what my two options are. And this is like, either way, I'm taking a gamble. This feels like the gamble to take. And we're like, yeah, okay. Like, I can't argue with that, right? Like, and so then what that also does is increasingly when she does things like put her foot down with Harry, and again, because she's so sweet and she's so gentle, when she says, excuse me, no, like not only does Harry like stand up straighter, but like as the reader, we're like, oh, and we also stand up straighter because we're like, oh, girl, get it, right? Like just like, and so we get to see that change in her, but taking again advantage of the fact that we are in her head so that we understand her and she doesn't feel like, again, she's moving because the plot requires it. Yeah.
You touched on something at the end that was really like bubbling to the surface for me too, that also shows so much in the pairing. Right. Yeah. Because they're pairing, you have someone who is basically, this is considered a ruthless character. A ruthless main male character is very popular and common right now. Right. But having it in this story, in this context, and then to have her sort of be just like, I just want normal, I want boring, I want quiet, I want a book. It can feel like he is going to run her over. And I think the author here does a great job of maintaining this dance, of him having moments where he is sort of like when they're in his like toy room.
Oh yeah.
His what is it called? Curiosities room. When they were in his curiosities room, when she just had one of those moments and she stopped herself, see, this is what happens. And he's just utterly that I love moments like this. I am a person like, like, and so having this balance where it could be because of the power dynamic difference that it could just sort of run over her, or she's got to feel like that she's got to be equally as ruthless to be able to stand toe to toe, and that each one of them in their own way had to step up their game or step down, or because when he kept saying, listen, I know you want an apology. I want to give it to you, but I would be lying. I would be lying because I'm not sorry. I was like, every time he said, but you know what, if I gotta tell you, I'm just letting you know I'm not sorry. Every time he did that, I was dying because it's just like, he's like, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry about this. So what part am I sorry about, you know? And so seeing this thing of where that's what his transformation is about, is understanding the impact of his, and we'll talk about him in a second, but in the dynamic of them seeing that push-pull. Mm-hmm. And that was enough.
Yeah.
That was more than enough to keep us hanging on, you know, and wanting to see how is this going to play out and how is she going to level the playing field consistently for them and the dynamic in their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really like that kind of gets at this, like, this note that I'd made about like the plot giving her opportunities to be that person, right?
That's right.
The rabbit taking the run at the cat, because he seems to hold all the cards, but actually, right? So you mentioned this, I think it was in this episode already, where like she's like, oh, I'm married to you. I will fulfill every obligation that is required of me, and I will do exactly that and not a thing more. Yeah. And the way that then the in a way the power dynamic changes, right? Because he's like, I want her to smile at me like, hey, I want her to be like that to me, right? And then all of a sudden, right, it turns the tables on him. And again, it's that thing of giving her the opportunity to like rise to this occasion and be who she's capable of being. And we see that so masterfully in this story of like watching her take that agency and sort of like claim her spot, right, and claim her place.
And then we are not going to talk about it because I want to talk about Harry a little bit, but I love Beatrice. I love her.
Amazing.
When she told her, you know what, such and such as a porcupine or this or that, I just loved everything about it. Oh, and so let's talk about opportunities, because part of those opportunities, even in the little things, like when Harry picked up the ferret and Harry picked up the porcupine. So there are these moments, right? There are these moments where you really have to find ways to show the nature of your character that already exists in them, but they don't realize that is the real version of them showing through, you know? And we saw that. And what happens is you can have this ruthless character, if you will, like Harry, that doesn't change a lot, but the way that he changes is significant to him.
Yeah.
It is huge to him because he has just taken obligation and responsibility on with no problem, but extending emotions is huge. That's not a thing. Now, I know he knows he has them for her, because the first time he calls her love, I'm just like, nobody stopped. What is wrong with you people? He's like, yes, love. I was like, oh. See, because you could tell I just love this. Okay. So, you know, figuring out how to do that so that you are showing. And I think that's another part of those opportunities. Are you given the opportunities? We see him being manipulative. We see him doing it intentionally, and he knows what he is doing. Yeah. He also realizes, well, damn, like maybe this is not gonna work. and when he's just like, no, I do not want you to do it because you feel like you have to do it. No, I want you to do it because you want to do it. And that is a change. Because before it would have just been, just give me what I want. Yeah. Girl, wait. Y'all, I hope I'm not giving away. When he said, he can have your heart as long as I get the rest of you. Listen.
This is pre-transformation Harry right here. Where you were like, sir, excuse me? It's like a little hot and a little questionable. And I'm like, wait, hang on.
Listen. Okay, it's just like struggle buzz love. He was just when he said that, baby, and he said it with his whole chest. He did not stutter. He did not blink. And she was just like, You know, like, what do you do? So with that said, you know, having a character then like him that's an offset of Poppy, that is like he is fully who he is. He does he is not even trying to
Yeah.
fit the mold. He
Yeah.
doesn't even care about the mold,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at the same time, realizing that he cannot have the version of Poppy that he truly desires and
Mm-hmm.
stay exactly the same.
Yeah.
And here's even the thing, she's not even asking him to change.
Yeah.
Because if you don't change for you, just like he's saying that, no, I want you to do it because you want to do it eventually. And I
Yeah.
think that's another part of them that makes them almost like, it makes them perfect, but almost like so stubborn in a
Yeah.
very interesting way. And it feels almost, I want to say soft, and I think that doesn't do it a big service, but it feels almost as if they're like ebbing and flowing so well, but that it always is a constant conflict
Yeah.
because they're going along, but the other person is realizing, but I want more.
Yeah.
I want more, and I want more from you.
Yeah.
But to get more from you, that means I need to do something different. And I
Yeah.
think that is really good here.
Yeah, which I think is like, because this is something I was thinking about in plot, and you had mentioned it briefly, but we didn't get a chance to like stop on it. But you talk about how they come together, and then it's like just as soon as they come together, something happens that they ricochet apart, and you're like, dang it, guys, come on, you know, but without it feeling like back and forth, right?
Yes.
So one of the things that like also can happen is where you have it almost feels like maybe a repeat complication, or like your stakes aren't escalating, they're just moving back and forth versus
Mm-hmm.
going like steadily up, where you have this like together apart together, and it feels like they kind of like, it makes it feel like back and forth rather than almost connection. Do you know what I mean? Like where
Yeah.
it's sort of like feels like it's going in circles rather than they're getting closer to that thing, but they keep bumping into real stuff. And I think exactly what you're saying is how she managed to do that, you know, coming together and then bouncing off of each other without it feeling like we're going in circles.
Yeah. And I, first of all, this is one of the books that I have a wholehearted intention of like doing a deep study on
Mm.
because I just love it. Here's what my theory is that she does and does really well, and this is what holds it together, is that she's very clear on certain aspects of them that make them who they are and how that affects the dynamic of them becoming a unit.
Yeah.
You know, for him, it's the hotel, it is his employees, and it's sort of like how he shows up in the world, and not in a sense of permission, but the things that sort of make up who he is and how people perceive him that Poppy has no interest in. She don't care
Mm-hmm.
about fancy carriages. She does not care about a lot of clothes. She
Yeah.
in at one point I loved when his his staff was so good, and that was another thing that shows the dynamic of a good-hearted person that is
Yeah.
just who he is. But when she was just like, listen, she's from a close-knit family, she just trying to find family,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to figure that out because she's just trying to find it, you know. And for Poppy, it is it is being able to hold on to the true sense of her curiosity, her
Mm.
wonder, her knowledge. And I loved at one point when he was like, all the things that made her sort of almost like a freak in dating makes her perfect in marriage,
Yeah.
right? Her dynamic with her family
Mm-hmm.
and the relationships with her sisters and the relationships with her brothers,
Mm-hmm.
including Cam and Marypen. And all of that means him understanding and taking on a dynamic that seems resistant
Yeah.
to who he is at his core, but what
Yeah.
he wants, but he can't put his finger on.
Yeah.
It's almost like he didn't even have the desire to want it anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
to be with her, it is at the core of who she is. And I think that is what makes this story work. It's like the things that make her her are almost unfathomable to him
Yeah.
as being important.
Yeah.
But because I love you, I'm saying I accept it. She said, no, don't just accept it. You got to be in it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I feel like that's the aspect that makes this so rooted, because a lot of those core things to both of them are what we want as normal dynamics as people, as the reader. And we want to see how they navigate it. And I think that is what makes that sort of that dynamic between her and him work, other than it being he's powerful and she's naive.
Yeah. It gives the whole thing more layers versus like they're as though they were just opposites. And that's like, that's all that they have, but it's like, it's deeper than that. And so it's like the fundamental things about them are the things that both draw them to each other, but also are like the rub at other points as well, that sort of, again, cause them to sort of like bounce off of one another. Just like you said, giving us that sense of like depth rather than we're going in circles with the same old conflict.
Yes, because normally the way that you would see it play out is that their opposite nature has a sameness root. That's not here.
Yeah.
That's not
they
here.
are like true opposites.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is the opposites in a sense of balance versus the opposites in the sense of it's a sameness that's masked in a different way. Yeah. And that's a different play on it. And that's it works. That's she built great characters for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Are there any other points you wanted to make sure we touch on before we wrap our discussion on characters?
No, other than this is one of my favorite books in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
She's like, yep, you told us that. But I didn't know if I told you on this episode.
That's right. That's right. Well, and like the characters for this book are so good. Like just to like by way of agreeing with you, right? So this is the first of the series I've ever read. I hadn't read any of the series before, so I was reading it and I met Cam and I was like, who's this guy? I want to go read that one because this guy seems awesome and hot. What do we got going on here? I'm intrigued. Like this just right. So like her cast is so robust and she made Poppy and Harry so meaningfully built for one another as characters. It's a fabulous look at characters. So that's just my way of being like, you're right. I agree.
And I will say, like, I would add this on here because I think in a way, just depending on when people come to this particular set of episodes, of saying that, again, I think would a book exactly like this work now? I don't know. But I think it's done in such a way that you can keep reading this book over and over again. I have read this book over and over again for 15 years. Right. And I still do. And when we did it for this, it just makes me happy to read. And ultimately, great storytelling will do that. Yeah. So you can have some things like a bunch of characters and not a whole lot of stuff going on, and it still work because you did a great job at telling the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our discussion of characters for Tempt Me at Twilight by Lisa Kleypas. As always, we haven't even scratched the surface. There's so many characters we haven't even discussed yet. So many points that didn't even come up yet that there wasn't time to cover. So if really you're wanting to look at, get a good look at characters, and that's something that you're wrestling with or working on, this is a great book to look at. And it's just so pleasant to experience. Like if you want to experience characters in a super pleasant way, this is a great one for that. So thank you all so much for joining us for this discussion. We'll be back next week to discuss our editor's takeaways from this novel. In the meantime, you can visit us at storydeepdive.com, where you can find out more about myself or Dana, and also find our show notes if you need them. You can also be sure to follow us on your preferred podcasting platform, or subscribe on YouTube if you're on YouTube. Hi. Always good to see you seeing us, I guess. That's the way to say that. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, leave us a rating and a review, drop us a comment. Let us know who your favorite character is or who you think the hottest main male character is in the of all of our options in the series. I would love to hear your perspective. And as always, please do let us know if you have questions. Always happy to field those in future episodes. So join us next week for our editor's takeaways. But until then, as always, happy writing.